Hi, welcome to a session of information exchange. I am Ashwin Babu Rao, co-founder of Beatworx Studio. I'm sitting here with Nick Devon, who's come to play his debut tour in India for the first time. Hi Nick, welcome to India.
Hello.
Welcome to Bangalore.
Thank you very much.
How are you feeling today?
Really excited.
It's
for
your
today,
first time here?
For this interview and for tomorrow, my gig.
As our information exchange session is all about discovering an artist, tracing back their musical history and finding out what they do in the studio. So let's dive right in and start off with a question for Nick.
Sure.
So Nick, tell us a little bit about your start in this entire field. Did you first start off as a DJ or a producer?
No, actually, I started as a party animal. I was starting going to clubs, and then I wanted to start producing the music. I listened and I wanted to be like my favorite DJs, so I started as a producer first. I didn't know anything about DJing.
Who were some of your favorite DJs and producers at that point of time?
At that point, we were talking about 20 years ago. So my favorite producer back then was Prodigy, because I was seeing all these live setups they were having, so I wanted to have all the analog gears they have, all the drum machines, and of course all this jamming that was happening during their live setup. After that, I switched from rave to more trancey, psychedelic, Goa trance at that era until 98, 2000, and this was the era that I was producing the most as my moniker with the name Cyan.
Wonderful. So at that point of time, where were you located? Which part of the world were you in, and what were the influences around you?
Well, I was really young back then, so I stayed in Athens in Greece, but I've seen people and stories and videos and stuff, so I wanted to travel the world. I really couldn't back then because I told you I was really young, so I had this dream to start doing that, so I just started music just for my own, and maybe, who knows, it will expand to more globally.
Did you ever have a formal training in music?
No, self-trained completely. And when we talk about 20 years ago, there was no YouTube, there was nothing, no tutorials, no expertise. No one could come and tell you what to do and how to do it, or alternative ways to do it. So you had to stick your head inside the hardware and find out the way.
Yes, it was also a time when making a studio meant you had to spend money, you had to be serious about it.
Yes.
There was no way that you could sit on a computer, muck around and make something and release it.
Well, think about that. You wanted to make a drum sound, you had to buy a sampler or a drum machine. You couldn't find samples that you could use in software. There were no softwares. So everything should be hardware. So everything should be money.
What was your first introduction to DAWs, or your process of starting music?
In a serious scale, I used Cubase.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I used to use other smaller softwares, even trackers that used in MS-DOS. But in a serious scale, it was Cubase. I think it started with Cubase 2, Cubase 3.1, and then Cubase 4, and then we stopped there. I went to Logic.
Wonderful. And how has your musical evolved over these years? How has your musicality evolved over these years? Walk us through some of the stuff that you were making early on and was influencing you to make that right until where you are today with what you're doing.
Yes. Even if I think about what I'm doing today, I have this kind of seed, this kind of virus of the trance era, of the rave era. So all my music from the day I started until now, with small breaks, they have this thing that the rave culture has. Powerful beats and trippy melodies and ethereal pads. You can find in every production on all these years. Except these years I tried myself a little bit more housey and new disco, this deep house. But still, it was not entirely deep house. It had these kind of elements of the rave.
Right. I think it was a time, when the sound started evolving from darker tech house into new disco, into what is now melodic techno. Mm-hmm. There was this whole evolution. So I remember you releasing a lot of music in your earlier days on 3 AM, Seva Favia, and all of these labels, and it was we can still see influences of what you were doing there, even with your current sound. So walk us a little bit more through how you pushed yourself to evolve your sound. Maybe you said you were using Cubase 1 first.
You know, when I always found my hardware to be my toys. So the more toys you get, the more things you want to explore, and they expand more musicality. The more analog hardware you get, the more kind of this sound you want to produce. And this sound is what I really love back in the days, and still love it now. So I want it to be in fashion, if you see it like in fashion, because I don't like this word, but you can produce music that was sounding really good like 20 years ago and still think that you're making something modern. But I see too many similarities with the sound of 20 years ago with the sound of today. So I wanted to keep this kind of feeling with a more modern sound and become even better, trying to push the boundaries more, instead of someone telling that, oh, Nick is just producing something that sounds like 20 years ago with a modern feel.
Right. Of course, there's always history that repeats itself with music, and sometimes, you know, it's fair enough to say everything that you can do is kind of already been done in a way.
Of course, no one can start from scratch, nothing. But of course, you just take ideas from the past and you make it like something new, try to make something new. And of course, the new generation can dig back to the old music and find similarities, but they are not completely and entirely the same.
Right. Of course, like looking through your classics, you can always find something that's so relatable to what you're doing today.
Yeah.
But it's all a question of how you present it today with today's current technology. Yes. Right? Lovely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that you've gone on to put your music out. For a lot of producers, you know, they struggle a lot when they're sending their initial demos. They get a lot of rejections.
Yeah.
So can you run us a little bit through that? Did you have a few target labels that you wanted to release with? Maybe did you have a strategy with your sound as to where you want to go? A little bit about that would be really nice to hear.
As I've always been a producer, I've never been actually so out in the media or trying to communicate with someone and be so social, because I've also always been like a guy sitting in the studio and producing just for his own. So after I finished tracks, I was trying to find also, I was struggling to find labels to produce my tracks, and there were labels actually saying that your sound is not for us, or this is too hard for my style, or this is not too melodic for my style, or this is too melodic for my style. So eventually I started producing something that was just for me, even if I won't release it anywhere. I didn't really care what any other label would say. This is my sound, this is what I wanted to do. So if I find someone that wants to release it, it's good. I didn't care if it's gonna be like a top label or like a bottom label. I really didn't care. It was one day after my initial releases in 3 AM and Union Jack and the other labels that Stay Yoki came and found me from one track I have released in 3 AM and told me that I like your productions, why don't you do a remix for us and we will see how it goes. And this was my initial step in Stay Yoki, just doing one remix. They liked the remix. We did one more track, and then one more track brought another track, and then we brought an EP, and you know the story from then.
Wonderful. So that was a point when you were not really following the label, but the label actually kind of found you.
I really didn't know the label. When the label came to me, actually it was really new label. It was more like 6 months alive.
Maybe this was 2013?
Yes, 2012 to 13. No, actually 2012, and the release went on 2013. So in 2012, it was the first year that Stay Yoki was born. I didn't know anything about the label. I didn't know anything about the culture behind it. So when I got invited, I was said that you can release it on this label. We have vinyls, we have exhibitions, we have parties, we stuff. Why wouldn't I just enter this label? It had everything, so why wouldn't I?
So how did your life change as a producer from then on, now that you got on to to this label?
Evolution.
Yes.
Yes, it's evolution. I couldn't expect me to be in this level. I really thank Stay for that. And even my sound changed because of Stay. I really didn't have any idea about this ethereal techno, we say it now.
Yes.
But it took the name because of the genre, and the genre took the name because of Stay and Stay. It's like a circle. We didn't want to produce ethereal techno. We didn't know about this name. We produced this music. We got this name from a fan. We liked this name. We named this kind of genre as ethereal techno, and we move it like this. We move on.
That's a question that's answered for you now. A lot of people wonder why it's called ethereal techno. So there you go.
Well, it's not this answer. It's my answer. If you think about it, it has techno elements with ethereal feeling.
Yes.
It's a lot of ambience behind with melodies that can lift you up and make you feel happy. And it's not house.
Yes, absolutely. The thing about this sound, I feel, is it's one of the most well-produced styles because there's a lot of musicality, there's a lot of technicality, there's house, there's influences of world music, ambient, psytrance,
Indeed.
a lot of this stuff.
You can combine many musical ideas inside it and still be a complete track. It's not like house. House is a huge genre actually, but I really feel that it has a background of disco, and this kind of background of disco and the jazzy feels of the classic house I really know, and I used to listen 10 years ago.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with the house music that actually is being produced these days.
Absolutely.
And about the techno, actually, I'm really into techno, and I'm really into stronger and harder techno tracks. But I take the influences and the small parts of these hard techno and stronger 128, 130 BPM tracks and try to put it in lower BPMs and more mental productions.
Right, we often hear that in a lot of your tracks where the grooves are primarily techno and mechanical, but you have all the melodic elements to kind of bridge it together.
Indeed.
And don't you think that's probably how a style is born? Because you take something from another element and try to implement it in something that you do in your way.
Because if you think about 15 years ago, like progressive house was house that had melodies going in progression. That's why it was progressive house. This is the same with techno. It's techno with elements of electronica or world music or ethereal soundscapes that are easily combined together and make a whole genre on its own. That's why I think it's unique. It's when you hear it, you can't name it progressive, you can name it techno, you can name it house.
Absolutely. There's often a lot of people who around and ask, what is this style of music? It's how to actually put a finger in it. Right. Let's run a little bit through your flow and your process. Run us through a typical day. You have your studio at home?
Yes. So, I don't work if I have it at home. I just want to go back, turn on and work. I just don't want to go to the studio to work.
Right.
I have to be and watch television, and when I stand from television, I have an idea to produce immediately. Some years ago, I used to have the studio sitting in my chair and everything around me. Lately, I find it more expressive to remove the chair completely from the studio and standing up and like jamming like a live session, recording 2-3 hours of endless jamming situations and then trying to cut and crop whatever I like and delete all the other elements. This is more random. This is more something that can be produced without me thinking that, oh, maybe this worked, or maybe I should put this, or maybe. It's something that's happening when you're jamming on top of the hardware, and it's happening on its own.
So what is a typical day like? Do you like to work during the day, during the night?
No,
or
I really like during the night. When everybody goes to sleep, for me it's like the best moment. I feel more inspired in the night.
Absolutely. There's something beautiful about the night and the
Yes,
silence of the
yes.
night. And after all, we are making music for the night. aren't
Yes.
we? Right. So how many hours do you end up spending in the studio
Well,
typically?
it's not typical.
Maybe let's say on a week that you don't have gigs, you have nothing to do, you just back there at home.
I can produce a track in one day. I can produce a track in 1 month. It's all about the creativity at that moment. I can be in the studio in 1 hour, or I can be in 6 hours. Maybe in this 1 hour I can bring incredible ideas, or in 6 hours I can bring nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
Yes, and the worst thing is the fatigue in the studio. Like if you are like sitting more than 2 hours inside the studio, you get tired. You get
Yes.
tired listening the same stuff again and again and again and again, the same loop, the same bass line, the same melodies. So I need breaks for at least like 30 minutes, 1 hour, 6 hours. It doesn't mean like
Right.
I need
Yeah.
to- And then I go back and then move on.
Do you often find yourself, working on multiple projects at the same time, or do you just like to work on one thing until you feel?
No, I can't do that. I can't work on one project and finish it. I just do something, put some ideas, and then stop it, take rest, and then open another project, put some ideas, stop it, and then go back to the previous project and trying to finalize it. Because if you have like 10 projects open, it's really hard to, focus your sound in one thing. You are focused in how to finish 10 tracks, and it's impossible.
Right. So often, then, let me get that better. You're basically working on multiple projects, but not
Yes,
too many
yes,
at the
yes,
same time.
yes,
Maybe
yes.
2 or 3
Well,
ideas.
it's mainly when I have a plan, like to make an EP, 3 tracks EP. I have 10 projects, for example, that I'm working for, like ideas. Just wake up in the morning and just turn on my computer and make something. This is what I call a jamming, just for a EP it might be produced. So I just save it there, and then I say, like, I have inside the bag 10 projects that I can choose from them, and then I choose from these 10 projects 3 projects that I like the most, and then I work them together. It's like one track, but when the EP is done, it's nearly done in all together.
Right.
I take it out together, so I don't actually have like 2 tracks from the EP, so I need to produce 1 more. I either don't have any tracks, or I have the EP completely ready.
Wonderful. So do you often find yourself, pulling ideas from other projects or other ideas, putting it together, or do you,
Yes. What I used to do is not saving anything in bits, nothing, not even the string of Ableton that I'm using right now, not in the channel string, nothing. So I wanted to just from scratch start something completely new with what I have, and not taking care of this lead or this melody sounded good with this project. I'm gonna copy it and put it here in my. So if you listen to my projects, a lot of tracks are completely different in terms of production.
Yes.
Because I don't want someone to listen to this track and the next track saying like, he used this pad on this one and reminds me this pad on this track. That's why I want to have whatever comes in my mind to be in a track.
So you like to start absolutely fresh each time?
Yes, zero completely, not even a kick drum.
Right. So, but let us go through a little bit of your hardware setup now. You prefer to use a lot more hardware than you used to before. So, what drove you towards taking that step in the first place?
It's what I told you, that sitting on the chair and producing made me a little bit sleepy.
Right.
Like staring on the monitor for hours eventually doesn't get you anywhere. So I had to improvise in live jamming, and live jamming with software is really.
It's not the same.
Yeah,
it's not like having an instrument and doing it in front of you.
Think about that. To jam in software, you have to produce the software sound in order to make it mapping, let's say, on push.
Yes.
And then you jam on it.
Yes.
On hardware, it's completely different. For example, in these modular synths, you turn it on and you know nothing of what the sound is going to come out. And then you tweak it and you make the sound you want.
Do you remember what was your first piece of hardware that you bought?
It was, yes, I remember. It was 20 years ago. It was my Yamaha CS1X. It's the blue synth. I still have it as a MIDI controller.
Nice. Maybe you should get it circuit bent and get some new sounds out of it.
Yeah, but I still use it, and it's very expressive for me. Maybe other people don't. Other people hate it.
Right.
This is what I feel.
Right, wonderful. So going back to your workflow, you were telling us that you like to have all your gear around, jam it out, start from absolutely scratch. So tell us a little bit about, for the guys, who are a little geeky, who want to know what your setup is like. Run us through everything that you have, and maybe what you use each thing for. Do you maybe have a designation saying, I like to use this synth for bass, I like to use this for my leads. So this can be quite an extensive explanation for the people who really...
Okay, lately I don't prefer anything or anything. Mainly I can do anything with any synth.
Yeah.
But it's what I look on every synth, and I want to do it at that moment. For sure, when I turn on the computer and put it on, I just open 16 audio tracks, and I have 16 channels that I send from my mixer. I have a Soundcraft mixer that I'm sending 16 audio channels out, and everything is connected on this Soundcraft. So if you see that, if you check on the studio, just press rec, and I have the kick drum made, for example, from my Tanzbär, MFB Tanzbär. Tweaking it, putting it some hi-hats, then adding some reverb, and then trying to make a bass line on my Acid Lab, for example, an Acid bass machine. Then I stop, trying to find something on the modular, then I start playing again. This is kind of the workflow. I really like my Vermona Performer lately. I don't want to go into the details of what is the synth, but it's really expressive because you don't know what's gonna happen. You start tweaking and it's happening. You never know. It doesn't have any presets. Mainly all my synths don't have presets. Because mainly analog. I have a lot of vintage gear that don't even have MIDI, and this is even better. Live. Yeah, this is even better to play something from scratch and something live at that moment without even quantization.
Yes.
And being entirely, as we said, organic and human feel.
Absolutely. And I think it also gives you the whole courage of you're not repeating ideas again. You're just capturing what you're doing.
It's not the same bass, it's not the same pad, it's not the same hi-hat.
Right, absolutely. So now you have a huge jam of 2 hours that you've recorded.
Yes.
Do you immediately get around to sitting and working on it, or do you like to just give it a little rest and then come back to it? Of course?
It's a mess. When you play with your toys at home, you don't want to gather them and put it there. You just leave it there, go to sleep, and then you turn on again the computer and see what you have done. Different year, completely new and fresh.
So do you often find sometimes you have enough material in the jam for 2 tracks?
Yes, for more. This is a nice one for another track, or I can use this one in another track I have, or maybe pitch it down because the other project is in a completely different key. I can use it there.
Right.
Yes, sure.
So what is currently your favorite piece of gear that you have in the studio?
It's my modular so far, and
which module in specific, or which few modules are your favorites?
I have a Dreadbox Hades that I built it on my own. It's like completely
nice. Yes, it's with the kit.
Yes, I got the kit and I built it on my own.
How difficult was it to build that?
Not really. It took me like 3 days, but it was
without any formal electrical training.
No,
course,
nothing.
Right?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing.
It was just follow the instructions. It's combined with the Mother 32, all of it in on the modular. I really love the clouds, mutable instrument clouds, for the textures and the granular synthesis. And I have a lot of filters that I do incredible stuff, because even a filter can be an oscillator.
Yes,
and I can use the
self-oscillation and resonance. Yes,
I use it a lot. My favorite pedal is the Big Sky. Strymon Big Sky. And I have a Chase Bliss Audio analog delay that it's entirely for guitar. It has really low impedance, but it works for me. It's really angry, it's really dirty, and very grainy. What else? I can't live without my Tanzbär, my drum machine. this is my starting point. I
Right.
can't start, and that's why, because I don't have any presets. I want to have drums when I start. That's why.
So you do like to have drums going on. That's one of the
Yes.
ways that you like to start, to just have a kind of central rhythm around
Yes,
that you do
indeed,
everything with.
indeed.
So you don't find yourself starting with composing a melody, or, you know, most musicians sometimes like to start from that direction.
But I think that the base of a good rhythm can bring a good melody. Or
Yeah.
Sometimes it starts like this. If I have a melody, I struggle to find a good bass drum or a good drums going on. But if I have a good groove, I think I can bring a good melody inside.
Absolutely. I think some of the most interesting melodies are melodies that have interesting rhythms.
Yes.
After all, the music is being
Indeed,
made
indeed.
for dancing.
Indeed. Especially on a modulated rhythm.
Right.
Well, for example, if I turn on the modular and try to make something musical, without drums, it doesn't go anywhere unless I try to produce an ambient track.
Right.
And I think one of these tracks are in my Aura album, in the album of Steyo Yoke called Aura, and it's called Everything Has a Beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we just heard.
Yes.
Wonderful. So tell us a little bit about your DJing. How do you approach DJing? Do you look at it as a way to showcase a lot of your music, or a balance of your music with other people's music?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, you know, DJing and production can go separate ways, definitely, because sometimes you want to be different as a DJ and cater to the situations that you played. So run us through everything about your DJing side, which we haven't spoken about at all.
I started mainly playing other people's music as a DJ, because I was not so confident about my music when I started producing. I think most of the producers feel like this.
Yes.
Because they know that some other DJs' tracks are functional, and maybe my track is not so functional on the stage. Eventually I tried to find what I really like when I play other people's tracks, so I made it also on my tracks, and now I feel really confident even playing unreleased stuff or maybe never released tracks. When I started, I said that I will try to blend a lot of tracks of mine with a lot of tracks for other DJs, and I'm trying to play in keys just to make the story.
And with music that is so musical and melodic, you cannot afford to clash keys.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So mainly I just stick to 123, 124 in gigs, and try not to push too much the BPM. Instead, in tracks that they are already 124, 123, 125, because I play in master tempo. And CDJs,
Yeah, maybe after like 1 or 2%, you
Yes.
definitely start losing the transients.
Indeed. What else? I think that I will never stop playing other people's music on my DJ sets. Other than that, I think I will go out playing live instead of like saying that I'm playing DJ.
Yes.
Because a DJ is actually trying to, in a way, amuse people, and they want to listen to different kind of textures in the music. From my side, I have a lot of different tracks, but it's not too different. So in my DJ set, I want to tell a story that doesn't have one subject. It has a lot of subjects. That's why. Otherwise, I'm trying a lot to produce something and trying to be a live artist, but it's so hard for me because I want to do everything analog.
Absolutely.
Yes,
You'll have to probably spend more money on your gear than your
No,
flight
I want
tickets.
to stress myself, and I'm not gonna go anywhere with this. I want to, to feel that no computer will help me at that moment. And the more I see that, the more stressful it is. But I'm not giving up.
You should be the computer.
Yes,
you should consider
yes,
yourself
yes,
the computer
entirely,
in that
yeah.
situation. Wonderful. So run us quickly through, what your aspirations are for the next few years. What are you looking to do as a producer? Are you looking to strictly stick to dance music, or would you also look at, doing alternative?
I don't have just one project named Nick Devon project. I'm doing a parallel project. I'm not gonna say the name. I'm gonna keep it completely secret from now until we produce at least 10 tracks. This is a project I'm doing with a friend of mine. Mainly, it's techno, more rave, more acid, and something that is focused completely on playing live, completely hardware live. This is what I was saying before, that I'm finding myself stressful to produce live on my own tracks, but something that is completely made entirely from live jamming, it's easier to put it in a live session.
When do you see this project?
I really don't know, and I really don't have a stress for that. Just whenever I have a free time, whenever I have inspiration to do that, I'm doing that. Mainly, I feel that in 2018, in this year, we will release something as this parallel project, but I'm not sure again.
Wonderful. We can't wait to hear some.
I want to have it like completely and entirely what I really want to do, without caring what anyone else is thinking. That's why I might delay it 1 year, 2 years, but when it goes out, it should be like perfect for my ears.
Quality control,
Yes,
of course.
yes.
It's so important.
Yes.
How do you go about that? Like when you have a bunch of tracks that you've probably made and decided, because these are some of the questions we get asked a lot from producers very often. How do you go about deciding which are the right tracks? Do you have another pair of ears? Do you have someone to always listen to it and kind of,
I used to think that sharing the music you're about to produce is not a good thing, because you get influenced by everyone's ears and opinions. But I've gathered 3-4 people that I really trust the music, and all of them kind of say the same thing. So I really trust them. Hey, this is my new track. Please listen and give me feedback. This is happening all the time. So I'm feeling more comfortable when it's finishing, and the guys tell me that, oh, this is very nice. I also feel very nice.
one of the most beautiful things that I've heard is when you know something is complete, when a track is complete, is when there's nothing more to add, nothing more to remove.
Yes.
What is your take on that?
There's always something to remove and something to add always, and the mix is never perfect.
Yeah.
For your ears, like you can never chase the perfect mix. But there is a moment and the point that you have to step foot and say, no, this is what should be released.
And this is what I stand for,
Yes,
this is my
yes.
sound.
There are a lot of people tell me like, oh, this should be removed from your track, or I don't like this melody, or I don't like this. And when you feel comfortable that this is what you wanted to do, you really don't care about what the people say.
Right. Give us a tip each on bass, on drums, on melodies, atmospheres for the producers. A little tip that you can share on any of these
I don't
factors.
think there's a specific tip I can give.
Or something that you
one
like
thing I
doing.
can give is actually never, in my productions, I never let the drums play alone. There's always a texture behind the drums. Even if they are dry, there's always a texture behind it. Even if there's just a bass drum and the bass and the hi-hat, thing, there's a texture and there's something happening.
It's kind of holding it together.
Yes, yes. About the bass, I still learn. It's 20 years later, I still learn. I still try to blend perfectly the kick drum with the bass, trying perfectly to layer one bass with the other, trying to perfectly layer the hi-hats together, because I use a lot of hats and a lot of hats tend to scream at the end of the mix, so I'm still learning. So I can't give a proper tip. I just, the most proper tip is just, how can I say, trust your ears.
Absolutely. Trust your ears, train your ears,
Yes.
dig back into the classics,
Indeed.
develop your taste.
Listen other mixes from other artists, how it sounds, of top artists, of top-notch artists, of well-known artists, I don't know how to say it. And then try to find out what they are doing, how they do it nicely, and how it sounds nicely, and try to find your way.
Right. We also love the fact that, you know, you're sharing a lot of videos on your page. In fact, you guys should go over to his page and check out some of his live jams,
Yeah.
which will give you a great insight into how he kind of puts his music forward and does all of this. So do you have any questions for us, Nick?
Since it's my first time in India, my question is, what is the scene here? What people actually like to listen when they go out, talking about techno and underground scene, firstly.
Yes.
And is it something that is really new to you, or is it something that it's coming from years ago?
Well, for us, the most funny part here is Indian music has the most rich culture when it comes to music. But a lot of Indians here don't actually embrace that with electronic music. It's often considered a little cheesy. So a lot of people ignore that, and of course the whole culture of underground music is definitely new here. We've been seeing that take a huge turn in the last 5 to 10 years. For example, I would say this year has been phenomenal already. It's just 2 months of 2018 and we've had more than like 15-20 big names touring the country.
That's really good.
Already. So there's a huge surge. There's a lot of talented producers. There's a lot of people who are talented with Indian music, classical music, and they're able to find, you know, electronic music to do, and they're doing a lot of great things. However, some of the problems that we have here is nightlife not being considered something that is normal. Nightlife is often looked at.
You don't have a steady scene. Maybe.
Yeah, we don't have a steady scene. There are a few states, you know, which are more relaxed. Goa, where you're going to be playing.
Yes.
You're going to see how different Goa is. But most of the other cities predominantly have very strict rules when it comes to nightlife. Most clubs start at 1 o'clock. So that kind of, you know, dampens the scene. However, there's always an alternate scene. There is always other parties that you can go to.
That's the underground.
In terms
That's
of
why it's called underground.
Exactly.
Anyway.
In terms of if you want to listen to music, there's always something, but it's still like you're kind of, you know, hiding and doing it in a way. But we do definitely see in the next few years that there is a possible way for change, for things to get a lot better here.
What I like in this booking, in your productions, in all the people that actually are involved in this, is they're very professional.
Yes.
From the moment they picked me up from the airport to the hotel, to the organization, to the club, to everything. It's so professional. And when I talked with friends of mine and my people in Greece and other countries, and I told them I have a tour in India, they told me, like, do they have a scene there? Do I actually know what and who you are, and do they just treat you well?
Right.
I have to answer that I'm treated properly and perfectly well.
Amazing. That's so nice to hear. Yeah. Often, like, you know, people do think that there is not an emerging scene in India, but to your surprise, there is.
Yes. This is what I wanted to ask you, and it's, you keep on going with the same team like this, and with the same professionalism. It's like how hard it is, and how hard it is to compete with other groups that they are doing other bookings, and what's happening in general in India in this.
So there's a lot of bookings in terms of different scenes. There's the techno scene, there is the house scene, there's the bass music scene. To even our surprise, all these three scenes are quite emergent on their own.
You don't conflict on each other.
No, there isn't much of a conflict, and at least with each scene, everyone knows each other. We all feel like a family over here. We all feel like a crew. Although they're different companies, but we all come together. How we're doing this project right now, how we're doing bookings. All kind of like to come together and see how best we can curate the scene rather than dividing ourselves. Of course, there's always competition, but I think it's more healthy competition. Also at times, you know, there are big festivals that are happening in the country every year. Sunburn, Supersonic, Magnetic Fields, Echoes of Earth, whatnot. There are tons of festivals that happen all through the year with great bookings, all of them. In fact, one of the last festivals, last editions, Echoes of the Earth, got Agents of Time to play, which is a super cool live act. So we never expect to see any of these in the last 4 years. So seeing that, I definitely feel that, you know, there isn't like a stiff bottleneck competition.
No.
Maybe in Europe there are 10,000 DJs in every square kilometer. Here, don't take it that much though. And as a school here also, we see a lot of influx of students who want to come and get into this, but end of the day, there's only 5% of them that are actually serious and will put in that effort.
For my side, I think that Indian music, in terms of techno, because it used to have a lot of trance, used to have a lot of psychedelic, it's kind of a virgin, this scene. That's why it's very good for people that actually start now and trying to find their way in this music, to have a proper scene behind it. and I think you're already doing a really good job.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nick. So look forward to hearing Nick Devon on his India tour, and make sure you follow him on his Facebook page and his SoundCloud if you want to listen to his music. Once again, signing off, I'm Ashwin Babu Rao, co-founder of Beatworx Studio. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Me too.